What's up, guys? Welcome back to the 40K Cafe, and thank you, Bo Guy, for the request. This is in response to my Salamanders fun fact video in referring to if they were the good guys, how did they do in the Great Crusade? And brother, I don't know how to tell you this, despite them being the kind of good guys of the Imperium, they are still Astartes. A prime example of this is the Battle of Caldera. Early on in the Great Crusade, the Salamanders were attached with a contingency of the 154th Expeditionary Fleet. They would come upon a planet that would be known as Ibsen by the inhabitants of the planet. And like all newly discovered worlds that were inhabited by humans, they would be brought into compliance. The Salamanders, led by Vulcan, would receive assistance from his fellow brothers, Mortarion and Ferrus Manus, and even though the planet was said to be underdeveloped, they would still receive heavy resistance from the true inhabitants, the Eldar, which oversaw the planet. Despite their best attempts, the Asuryani Eldar would be beaten into submission by the three legions. And in the process of finalizing compliance, Vulcan would come across a chamber that contained an Eldar webway portal, some human inhabitants of Ibsen, and a Drukhari. The objective of the Ibsen inhabitants were to unalive and sacrifice the Drukhari. The goal of sacrificing the Drukhari was to prevent any more of her kind from arriving on the planet, for it was here that Vulcan learned that the inhabitants of Ibsen actually looked at the Asuryani as liberators, as long before the Asuryani arrived, they were living in fear of the true tyrants, the Drukhari. With all this information now swelling within Vulcan's mind, he realized one thing. These humans were contaminated with Xenos filth, looking at Asuryani as their liberators and the Imperium as nothing more than new tyrants. So with a swift and heavy hand, Vulcan ordered that Ibsen was irredeemable, marking the planet for exterminatus and purging the surface with flames of purity. This would cleanse the planet of any Xenos taint amongst the humans and the surface itself, and once the cleansing was done, it would make way for the new human colonists that rightfully deserved the planet, not those that looked at Xenos scum as their saviors. My point of this story is like what I said from the beginning of this video. The Salamanders, although considered good guys of the Imperium, are still Astartes, and therefore if your heart isn't 100% for the Imperium, you are to be treated like no better than mutants, heretics, or Xenos. Any and all unclean deserve nothing from the Emperor's light, and only the purity of cleansing flame. The events that took place at Ibsen, now renamed Caldera in remembrance of the events that happened, are a prime example of one of many situations that occurred during the Great Crusade. The Salamanders are more than willing to sacrifice themselves for their brothers and other sons and daughters of the Imperium, but that is exactly where it stops. Mercy is only right for those of the Imperium and no one else, proving again that there really are no good guys in 40K. But Bo Guy, I hope that helped answer your question. Thank you again, guys, for listening and for the request. Drop a comment if there's anything you guys want to hear about next, and as always, remember to follow for more.